would like to welcome everybody. We were really hoping to have an in-person meeting this year for the grant volunteered to open up the research center and talk about some of the research that we have and to just give a tour of the research center. We're really proud of the research center. It was established, funding was established in about 1975, and the center opened in 1978. And then we had some superintendents. We had some interim superintendents, but a notable superintendent was Glenn Lofgren, was one of the first superintendents. He was the person that was responsible for working on the California net energy system, is what we use throughout the beef cattle industry, in fact the dairy too, on net energy requirements for cattle at various stages. And then he did a lot of work with receiving cattle. Following Glenn was Michael Gallion. He is now provost at the Texas Tech University. We've had Paul DeFore, CEO of Cactus. Nathan Elam was is now a private consultant. Mike Hubbard was just prior to me, and then I came back in 2015, sorry. And I also give a shout out to Vinicius Govier. He's our new faculty member here at the Research Center. He's the one that came up with these slides. So really appreciate the input that he's had on everything going on. Next slide. So when we look at the Research Center, really the legislative mandate when they opened the Research Center up was to concentrate on health and performance of newly received beef calves. And we still do that. That's in our mission statement. There's several things that we concentrate on is, of course, management of these newly received feedlot cattle, development of nutritional programs for the beef and dairy calf industry is another thing we want to initiate in the future. And then we also have management of stockers grazing on our wheat pasture. And then we also concentrate on just feedlot objectives for finishing cattle out. And then we also work quite a bit with collaborators with industry. We work with a lot of collaborators on campus, and then also at some of the regional universities. Next slide. So when you look at the Research Center, we have 48 feedlot pens. And if you can see the top end of the picture here, that little house up there on the top is actually Texas. So we are out kind of in the middle of nowhere. We're 4 miles to Texas, about 5 miles to Oklahoma in the northeastern New Mexico. So it's really a pretty nice place to have a feedlot. We're real close to the feeding industry. We have 48 pens, 32 individual pens, some receiving pens, feed mills, laboratory. And then one of the other things that's unique to our center is we have a 120-acre under center pivot that we can use for grazing studies, and we have been concentrating on wheat pasture. Next slide. So we concentrate main areas on nutrition, health, management, stress. We have integrated studies, nutrition management, nutrition health, and management and health. Next slide. And and these slides can be made available to everybody, but these are some of the things that we really concentrate on the right. As you can see, there are the studies that concentrate on wheat receiving. We have minerals, implants, grain processing, feed additives. Next slide. And it goes to animal health. So respiratory disease is a major problem in the feedlot industry, and that's really the focus of the Research Center. And we have used antibiotics, but one of the things we're trying to do is get away from the use of antibiotics. Next slide. So our facility, we have really nice, so we'll be doing the processing here of these calves. These are some of the calves that we have from the Criollo project. These are actually coming from the College Ranch, or the Chihuahuan Desert Research Center down in Las Cruces. And our processing crew, what we do is we'll bring the cattle in, we individually identify them, we give them all their their injections, we give them a clostridial injection, which is a blackleg. We also give them injections for respiratory pathogens or viruses. And then we implant the animals. Implants are one of the most cost-effective methods that we have for improving gain on our animals. So there's usually at least a 20-to-1 cost or the return on investment when we implant our animals. And then these particular cattle, we deworm them. We give them the oral drench, which on the left is Dr. Govier is giving their oral drench right there. And then he will also give us an injectable anthelmintic or the dewormer. So we want to make sure that we don't have any problems with the worms coming in or any kind of parasites. And then the other thing that we do is we practice beef quality assurance. We do the change the needles every 10 calves. We make sure that we have at least 4 inches. And then also our injections, when possible, we use a subcutaneous injection route. So, and you say, I really don't do much work here. I just kind of walk around and bark orders every once in a while. So, one of the other things that we're pretty proud of at the center is that our facilities are truly low stress facilities when we work these animals. They come in through the, we have a bud box at the back, which is was developed by Bud Williams. He's out of Nebraska. One of the things, the cattle will come in and they want to go out the same way that they came in. So they will come right into the working facility. We hardly ever have to use any kind of any method to get them to move through these facilities. We have hot shots, but I would say that we probably don't have to do it on maybe 1 or 2 animals in a whole load. And that's primarily ones that are just a little bit of used to going through facilities, I guess, and then they really don't want to work through the facility. So we're pretty proud of the way that we are able to work these cattle in the facility. So Cece right there is our farm ranch manager, and she was implanting the cattle. And then as you can see, they're really pretty calm when they come out. Really not much of an issue when we have the proper facilities. So again, these are the Criollo cross calves coming out of Las Cruces. And then, so as you can see, this is one of our grad students is giving them shots, and she does actually tint the skin so that we ensure that it's subcutaneous. And she's giving them either the clostridial or the respiratory vaccine there. Pretty proud of our crew. You know, they work hard. They're easy to work with. Now there's going to be a few slides where, so this is we've got some of the Criollo cows up here at the research center. Down in Las Cruces, they haven't had any rain for quite a while, and they run out of forages. So we bring those cows, we're bringing the cows up here to graze on our native range, and then also our wheat pasture. We receive them in the feedlot because it's kind of hard to treat the animals once they're out on pasture. So these are actually the bred cows. And here are some of the pictures of the calves that we have. These calves, the black ones are from Southern California. They're crossed with Angus. And the red ones are coming from Utah. They're the ones that are crossed with red Angus cattle. And then you really can't tell any difference between the calves that we received on this particular study. These are the Brangus calves coming from Las Cruces. So I think they're really good quality calves. We did have an order buyer placed a value on these calves, and they were just pretty much right in line with the calves that are coming through the local auction markets. So. And this is the Brangus calves from Las Cruces. They're just kind of letting them get over any of the problems that we have with respiratory disease as we bring them into the facility. And that's primarily because of the way that we have to work the animals on wheat pasture. It's harder to get them into the processing facility. So we want to make sure that they are over any of the problems that we normally experience when we receive the cattle into the research center. So here is some sorting pens that we have. This tub at the bottom is the receiving tub. And then we have some sorting facilities. So when we work the cattle, we can sort them 24 different ways. On the left-hand side, we have a large scale that's a truck scale, so we can weigh our commodities in. And then we can also get group weights when we need it from the different studies rather than individually weighing each animal. Next slide. We also we rely a lot on student help. This particular student is from Brazil, was up here on an internship, and we will get samples for the animals. We have some of the laboratory equipment where we can do a complete blood count on the animals coming in so that we can help identify maybe some markers to be indicative of when the animals are either going to get sick or those that have already been sick. So this particular intern is getting a blood sample from the animals. And again, as you can see, it's really not straining any. We really have low stress handling on the cattle here at the research center. One tag, the 20, would actually be in pin 20, and then the 1094 is its individual animal identification. So we make sure that we keep track of the animals from receiving all the way through finishing. Next slide. One of the things that people like about the results that they get from the research center is it's very practical. We have the fence line feeder or feed bunks, and then each pen will hold about 20 steers on finishing experiments. On receiving calves, we can get, usually we use 15 to 20 head per pen. It's an easy number to keep track of and to pull out when we do have any calves that become sick. And we have the fences are all pipe fences, so it's really pretty models the commercial feedlots. Next slide. We have a laboratory. The back of the building is a laboratory. We have it set up where we can do approximate analysis on our feeds, but most of the time we have most of our feed samples we send out because we can get the results within 1 week versus waiting until a graduate student finishes the research project. And then Dr. Govier had also bought analyzers so we can do blood counts, complete blood counts when we can get in. We have a blood gas analyzer, and then we have some equipment that we can do in vitro or in the tube digestibility studies. In the front part of this building is our offices. Next slide. We also grow a lot of our own feed any that we can. So this is a particular picture of some of the wheat hay that we've put up over the past couple of years so that we can decrease the cost of our commodities. We do get quite a bit of in-kind donations at the research center. Feed companies, pharmaceutical companies will provide in-kind support to help us make the research center more functional, or at least lose less money usually is what happens. Next slide. So these are the animals that we get in. It's typical of the cattle that are fed in the industry. These animals, they came from the local auction markets. We had a study where we were looking at some feed additives. So these are some of the, basically a model of what most of the feed yards do. So we have 48 pins, so it's really nice replication on most of our experiments. Next slide. We also have a wheat pasture, and that's one of the things that does set us apart from a lot of research centers is we have access to a 120-acre center pivot that we just drilled a new well or completed a new well this last summer. And we are able to pump somewhere around 790 to 820 gallons per minute, which is a really good well that we have. And then the feed mill is typical of the older feed mills that we have. We use the same commodities that the feedlots use. Most of our diets are corn-based. And then we have for roughage or for the forage that we put in the diets, they are dry roughages. We use a lot of the wheat hay that we buy. And on occasion, we have to purchase some outside hay, which usually will be alfalfa. And then we can store whole grains in the 2 bins that are outside the feed mill. Next slide. So this is a little video of I think, or maybe just a picture. No, it's a video. This is when we were drilling the TAM 204. And we did have a Sudan grass on the pasture beforehand. And then we did just no-till right into the Sudan grass. So that's why you see some of the remaining forage there. Next slide. So with that, that's my presentation. Again, we wish we could have had an in-person site visit for everybody, but we appreciate everybody joining us today and then listening to what I have to say. We're proud of our research center. And anytime you get a chance, please stop by once some of the restrictions are lifted.